All right, let's go. Hi everybody, Julie's World Crochet. We're back because I want to show you this. It's a short video to show you how to do the Russian binding technique to join your two pieces of yarn together. The reason I'm here is because check this out. I am coming to the very last skein of the body of my moss stitch blanket that I've been preparing. Very excited. Okay, I still have to do a border. That won't take long, but still, it's the last skein for the whole bulk body of the blanket. So very excited. I need to attach my yarn to this last piece. And since I'm here, I thought I'd share with you how this technique is, because I was really glad to have learned it. It works really, really well. I'm really happy to not have to deal with knots or little ends sticking out that kind of ruin the texture of my fabric. It's really simple to do. It only takes maybe an extra few seconds, an extra minute or so beyond just whipping off a knot, but I think it's really worth it. So I'm going to show you how that's done. I'm just going to use, I have one yarn here that is like twisted. This is just a plain, I think, a Super Saver worsted. You can see how it's got the individual threads that are bound together by this twisting. I'm also going to use a second yarn, and this time I'm doing like not the same color, but I'm going to use this because it is not a twisted yarn, and there's plenty of this. If you have something chain spun, I think this is marled, I think is the technique, but basically there's a lot of very fine strands, like 10 or 12, and then there's one thread that's wound around it to hold it together. So it itself isn't twisted, it's held together by a twist of one of the threads that are part of the piece. So you can do them slightly differently, which is why I'm going to combine the two. Keep in mind that, this is not the thing to use really for when you're trying to, say, switch colors and move on to your next row with a new color, because you're not going to predict exactly where that'll turn. Although if it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter to me. It'll save you weaving in the ends, but generally you just won't get away with that. This is usually just for putting the two pieces of yarn together. Anyway, I'm going to show you how it gets done. I'm going to use my little plastic tapestry needle because I don't actually have a fancier tapestry needle. I don't have like a proper metal one or anything. These are the freebie that comes with, when you buy some tool or whatever and it throws a couple in. But it's been working for me so far, so why not? And I'm sure there's other people out there using the same thing, and no need to be ashamed. It does the job. To begin with, when I put these together, I'm going to start with this blue one, the twisted worsted, and I'm going to combine it with this. So I'm just going to show you that I just lay it over top. You don't have to get fancy about it, and it doesn't matter what length. We're going to fuss with that later. You just want it to be kind of over top but out of your way. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this short end and we're going to weave it into the center of the longer piece, and similarly with this one, so that we'll end up with a long piece of yarn with no knots. It'll just be a little bit thicker right there, and you'll see in just a second. So let's load this onto the needle. And you want this as short as you can manage. Half an inch is more than enough. You're not even going to be really working the needle very much. I'm going to hold it up here to do the little loading part, so it doesn't matter. But you really want this short so that you can get as close to the end as possible, so that it will sit really nicely. The whole total length isn't overly long. So bring this up so that it's inside of that. And I'm going to bend this over, and wherever your needle comes in, you just want to roll it with your thumb a bit so you can lay it inside. Ultimately, we're going to set it up so that this the needle, and thus the yarn that we bring through, runs through the middle of this yarn. So I'm just going to push it through a little bit, and then I'm going to unroll this a bit and lay it down some more and come around the side. You don't want to go too far up, so you can't really make a mistake, and I'm going to show you on this yarn. I mean, if you have difficulty with this or with your yarn, you can do it the way I do here when I do this strand. So you can't really make a mistake loading it through. The mistake comes if you try and go too far. If you get impatient and you jump ahead and you have this big space, you really want to be as close as you could possibly be loading this yarn on. And because I told you we wanted this not to be too long, that's because you actually have to make sure that you load enough to cover the end of your stitch. So just keep rolling it over, wrapping it around these strands so that it'll come through. And you're going to load quite a bit on like this so I can get a good length. It only takes a quick second. So here's my loaded kind of yarn. Here's my tail end. This guy's running through it. So I'm just going to slide my yarn right off the end. Oops, what have I done here? There we go. I find the twisted one takes a little bit more sometimes. I'm going to pull it right off the end, and I'm pulling it until this tail comes on out. I don't need this anymore for the rest of this piece. This is the anchor one, and I can just slide this along. This is my longer piece. I'll just pull it. You can see how it pulls and lays down over top of that end that I wove through it, right? It looks lovely. And it's just done over top of this yarn. So that's why it didn't matter how long I made it, because it'll slide along, no problem for this. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. This time I'm using this this green yarn at the time. This is from my moss stitch blanket project. I'm going to load this on. Remember, I said this isn't like a twisted yarn and a chain spun yarn. Like there's all kinds of yarns out there that aren't done up the same way as this twist. So when you run into that, take your piece that's already on here. We're going to slide it up. I have a nice short little tail. I don't need it to be too long. I'll bend it over, but I don't have a twist in here. So all you're going to do is push it through. Just don't go too far. You want to keep it short little distances. And I almost basically fold it over top so that I'm pushing my needle kind of through the center. We're eyeballing it. You can't be perfect. Kind of through the center of the yarn and just fold it over. And like I said, if you have trouble working with this twisted, say the way that you're doing it makes it a little too tight or it's awkward for you, just go ahead and handle it like this. This is going to be fine. Remember, like not only does it sit really nice, but you're working the yarn. You're going to work it into a stitch. It's all going to be held perfectly fine. This just saves you from little ends sticking out and that like one stubby hard knot that's in the middle of your nice fabric. So some works, like projects that you work on, maybe you don't notice. It's not a big deal. But I know that I've worked on some others, especially with a very soft fabric like this one. Another one was a baby blanket where I could tell where that knot was. I kind of had to fuss a little bit to make it, you know, not noticeable. I think I'm going to do just a little bit more. There's almost like you kind of can't do too much if it's beyond your tail end, wherever you're at. Your yarn's just going to sit back down, no problem. It's not going to notice at all. So we'll call that good. There we go. So there's my yarn, there's my little tail, and I'm just going to slide this down to the end. Again, I'm going to pull this down long enough so I can take this tail out the other side. So just slide this right off. There's my tail. Now I don't need that needle anymore. I can hold this, and I'll just go by this long piece right now so you can see it. Just come right over top. Perfect. So now, here's our yarn. So from this length to about here, this is a double thickness yarn, right? Because it's been twisted over. That is the extent of the effect of this on your work. Again, no knot, no little ends sticking out. You can just continue on working your stitches and it's smooth sailing. I really, really like this. Now, I should say, I called this the Russian binding technique. Maybe it's called something else as well. I don't know if it has alternative names. It's just the only thing I've ever heard, and I'm probably a little too new to have seen all the variety, and I haven't talked to enough people who've told me differently. So it's Russian binding technique for me. But by any other name, it's still a fantastic little tool to have in our box to do. So that's it. As always, if you like what you're seeing, give it a subscribe, throw me a like, definitely give me a comment if there's other stuff you want to see in particular. I will learn it and come back and show you what I've learned. Love to see you, and we'll be back again with more content soon. Thanks and bye.